So, you know what happened? I put out the call to see what you wanted me to do here on YouTube, and some of you even answered me. It was amazing. I think 4 people. No, I'm joking. Actually, it was really brilliant. So I really appreciate everybody who did get back to me, and there's now a hefty list for me to work through. But we're going to start with preserved lemons, because when we made the pesto, kind of salsa verde thingy, whatever we want to call it, go and check out that episode if you haven't yet. I use the preserved lemons to salt the pesto. So in lieu of that amazing umami that you get with something as salty as Parmesan, we popped the preserved lemons in there, and then a lot of people were like, oh, that's a good idea, but I don't know how to make preserved lemons. I was surprised that so many people asked me, only because I think that they're kind of so simple but unbelievably satisfying when you've got these lovely jars of, sunshine yellow adorning your shelves, that I just didn't even think to kind of do this as a recipe. But let's do it, because it is simple, but it's nice to be able to have them on hand, use them for all sorts of things. So the ingredients are basic, and then there's all the leeway that you have to put your own kind of personal stamp on it if you want. So lemons, obviously. I have a friend who has a groaning lemon tree, and she invited me around and gave me 8 big boxes of lemons. So preserved lemons is an excellent way of dealing with a lot of lemons all at once. Right, so loads of lemons, that's a good start. All you need to do is cut these into quarters. Don't worry about the seeds, leave them in. The rind stays on, obviously. Make sure you've got some nice jars good to go. I use the Fowler's jars just because I kind of use them for everything. I love going to secondhand shops and buying jars, it's a thing. I tend to just, with the first couple, squeeze a bit of the juice into the bottom. Everyone's going to have a different technique for this, so don't feel like there's any way that you could possibly go wrong with this, except to make sure your jars are sterile. That's kind of important, because even though we're putting an enormous amount of salt in to preserve these, they can go moldy, so you don't want that. Then I just use a wooden spoon to push them down. It's not an outrageously glamorous thing to do, but it's really satisfying when you make these. And salt. Now, as you know, if you've been watching YouTube for a while, I just use the Himalayan salt with kind of everything. So my salt's going to be a little bit pink, but I don't mind. I don't mind if you don't. And then bay leaves. I tend to pop a couple in along the way. Squash the next lemon in it, and pepper. Like I said, do whatever you like in this. If you want to put some cinnamon in there, or some star anise, or I don't know, some cloves, or you might want to put some fennel seeds in, all of those things are more than possible. They're kind of encouraged, so that you can flavour the lemons with a little hint of something else. All right, so your next lot of lemon quarters. The reason that you squash it like this is to obviously release the juice, because you want them at the end of the process to be completely covered in salt and juice. So you can get the gist that we're doing a layer of lemons and then a layer of salt, and every now and again throwing in either a bay leaf or some peppercorns. Well, that's what I'm doing. But like I said, play around with it and make it your own. I do really like preserved lemons with spices like cinnamon and star anise in them. But then I find that I'm kind of restricted to using that flavour profile, with that Moroccan kind of feel or Indian stuff, but not so much if I want to do something Italian. Like, it just doesn't, well, I don't know. You can make up your own rules, can't you? So fresh bay leaves, if you can get them. If you can't, that's okay. You can use dry. It's just that fresh will kind of be a bit more pliable, so they're not going to break up when you start to, smash your lemons in there. What are you going to eat these with? Well, we've done the pesto thing, so that works really well. But one of my favourite super fast meals is to just do preserved lemons and olive oil, really delicious, grassy, fresh, current season olive oil, just to sound like a complete food snob. And then some garlic or some fresh chives or some marjoram, something along those lines, with a pasta. Like, so good, because you can see the amount of salt that we're packing into this. It's not going to be a subtle flavour. You know, you really know when you're eating preserved lemons. It's kind of obvious. I also love making risotto with preserved lemons. You know, in the same way that we were talking about using the preserved lemons in lieu of Parmesan cheese in the pasta, you can do that with risotto. And I just never, ever look for cheese in a risotto then, because it's all kind of, the flavour is full enough. So you can see it doesn't take ages, but then you have something that sits on your shelf and you feel immensely proud of your efforts because you've got a whole jar of stuff. You don't just have one small thing to show off. But these will take, to preserve, to mature, anywhere from probably a month to 6 weeks. The best lemons are the ones with the really thick rind for this. So then they're going to take longer to preserve because the salt needs to permeate through that, because you want the rind. Actually, you don't really eat the flesh in preserved lemons. Sometimes you can put it in almost like a stock in the bottom of, like we were saying, a risotto, or maybe add it to a soup. Because all of the lemons are well and truly under the salt line there, the tide, I don't think we're going to squash that last little piece in, just because I don't want it to go over the top. I've already got stuff all over me. What am I like? Basically, you don't want anything breaking the surface, because that's when mold's going to get in. So you just want to have that perfect surface, everything completely covered. It's pretty, isn't it? I mean, I'm using pink salt, so it's obviously a different colour to what you're probably used to seeing preserved lemons with. But remember that you're actually not going to get any of that colour coming through. When you use preserved lemons, simply take that quarter out, give it a bit of a rinse. Most times I would say you rinse it, so make that the general rule, because there's going to be a lot of salt on there. But there's the odd occasion when you're not going to rinse them. When we did the pesto, for example, because I didn't have any other salt in that, I didn't rinse them. So that became the salt factor as well, the seasoning as well. All right, now, normally I would put a little jam cover on there, but I forgot to put it right here. So you're imagining that little jam cover, you know, those little clear kind of cellophane-y things, and then seal that and leave that sit in a dark, cool place. Ideally, if you can pop it in the back of your cupboard so that it's not exposed to sunlight. But you can keep an eye on it, because if you do see any mold, don't freak out. I mean, you know, there's mold in everything. But that's why I recommend getting a jar that has a bit of a shoulder to it, because you can force the lemons down and sit them under that shoulder, and then they can't get back out. Did I say that you can also blitz that up if you want to? Blitz that up with like nuts, more of a, I mean, pesto has nuts in it sometimes, I know, but rather than being heavy on the herbs, go heavy on the nuts, and really don't need to add many herbs at all, if any, and make a little paste like that, and then use that with couscous or with pasta, or, you know, even put a layer in the bottom of a pie that you might be making, a pastry. Really, really good. You're just going to love having those in the cupboard, because you're just going to reach for them all the time and wonder how the heck you ever got on without preserved lemons prior to this. So thank you for asking me to do that, and I hope that the people who did ask for that are now running off to sort out their jars and their lemons. But, you know, if you're keen, it kind of takes half an hour on an afternoon, and you've got something awesome to show for it. And of course, well, you know what I'm going to say. you can subscribe if you haven't already. And if you haven't already, geez, what do I have to do? So subscribe, but also can you please share the videos if you think that somebody else will get something out of them, because that's been brilliant. Lots of people have been doing that, and yeah, it makes this, what is this? It's like this free cookbook installment that comes your way every week. It makes it all the more worthwhile.